Good morning, class of 2023. This is Mr. Legg with your ICAP lesson for the week. And I'm just going to get right into it. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you're looking forward to the weekend and one more week to spring break. Last time we talked about imposter syndrome. Hopefully some of you remember this. I hope all of you remember it, but at a minimum, I hope some of you remember this. And we talked about what it feels like to feel like maybe you're the only one in the room that doesn't belong. And yes, I'm making the connection with Among Us here. But what I'm really trying to do is make the connection with often how we show up in a room. That could be a classroom, that could be at work, that could be in a house, that could be at home. You may feel like you don't belong. The conversation or at least the lesson that was provided was a discussion about the fact that we're often tricking ourselves when we feel that way. We're often sabotaging ourselves when we feel that way. And so the things that we hear or that we tell ourselves is I'm just lucky that I'm here. I'm a fraud. They're going to be on to me. Others are better. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I don't belong here. I'll get found out. I don't deserve it. I'm never good enough. They'll know I am fake. And these come from outward pressures, but these also come from inward pressures. And they hurt us. They keep us from growing. They keep us from having access to the things that we want and deserve. And that is why it's so important for me to discuss imposter syndrome with you, because you are deserving of better. You are capable of more. I believe that in almost any instance with our students. And so please think about this. Think about the way you show up in a room and the thoughts that you have, the negative thoughts, the self-sabotaging thoughts that you have. So we actually have a graduate, Jorge Martinez, who graduated in 2013. And in high school during his time, his goal was to become a software engineer. After he graduated, he went on and did 2 years of college, but eventually has moved to a career in MMA. He's also helping running a flooring company with his dad. And you'll see also here you have words to live by. And so Jorge, when you look at kind of just his path, he wanted to be a software engineer. We have a lot of students who have an interest in engineering. I think in part because they're good at math. I think in part because they know there's good money there. But I know when students show up in rooms with engineers, just as I explained in my last lesson, that often they feel out of place. One, because it's not a space where you see a lot of people of color. Two, because there are going to be a lot of smart people in the room and you're often measuring yourself. And so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Jorge felt this way. Or maybe he felt this way because where he knew he truly belonged was in MMA or running this floor company with his dad. So maybe he felt like an imposter because he knew that's not what he wanted to do. And the reason I bring this up, because we don't yet know Jorge's whole story, is that things change throughout your time in life. Things change throughout high school. And so I don't want any of you to be ashamed about what you're thinking about doing now, whether it's a software engineer, whether it's MMA, whether it's running a floor company. What I want you to be doing now is making sure you keep your options open for all three of those things. Running a floor company doesn't necessarily require a college degree. Software engineering does. And while MMA doesn't require a degree, it does require an awful lot of training and commitment, a schooling of itself. And so I think it's important to share this with you because it's important to know that regardless of what room you're in, it is important for you to explore and figure out whether that room is for you, and not let anybody else convince you that it's not for you, not to trick yourself into believing it's not for you, but know that you belong in that room and you deserve the right to explore that room, whether it be running a flooring company, whether it be college, whether it be software engineering, whether it be MMA. So part of the reason I bring this up is I had a student who was interested in MMA, and I knew we had two students, or I knew we had one student that did it, but I didn't know them. So I got in touch with Mr. Jose and Miss Mindy, and they both knew of our two alums, and we set up a meeting today at noon. Um, so right after school is done, if you go to the Google Meet code Mindy Office, MINDI Office, then you can hear more from George and Oscar, hear more about their story. So if you have an interest in MMA, come. If you have an interest in hearing his story, come. If you have an interest in sports, athletics, sports therapy, come. If you just want to hear somebody, hear an inspiring story, come. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my imposter syndrome. So yes, I'm old. You'll see here pictures here. So that is my senior picture. It's only black and white, not because I'm so old. It's black and white because I did not do enough in high school to make sure that I got a color picture in. I wasn't on the ball my senior year. I was just kind of living life and enjoying things. And so I never took a senior picture. So they used basically my Infinite Campus student portal picture. And the picture to the left is me in my career before I became a high school counselor. So yes, I graduated from Hinckley High School in 1994. In high school, I never really looked at these things. These are the things that I just thought about. Being an astronaut, architect or teacher. And then I went on to graduate from the University of Colorado with a degree in finance, Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration with a major in finance in 1999. Took me 5 years to graduate. I got a graduate banking certificate from Pacific Coast Banking School at the University of Washington. And then eventually you'll see, basically 12 years later, after I graduated from college, I got my master's in school counseling from the University of Phoenix, and that's why I'm here. My previous career, I was a senior vice president of First Bank of Aurora. I worked with First Bank for 13 and a half years. And so that's my picture to the left. I have a little bit more hair then. You can see it was fading away though. But that was a different time. And there was a lot of time that I spent in my 13 and a half year career feeling like an imposter. And feeling like an imposter did sabotage some of my career. I did not grow in some areas of my career because I did not feel I belonged. Now, I grabbed a hold of that job and I made it my own. And so that helped me get beyond that self-sabotage. Now, some of what I did in sabotaging myself kept me from being able to integrate as much as I wanted to. And mostly that was relating to not feeling like I belonged in rooms with a bunch of wealthy white people, not feeling I belonged in rooms with a bunch of white coworkers. And then also just not having the financial expertise that I wanted to really succeed. Where I succeeded was really in helping my community and being a community resource as a banker. So I found a way, but I also hurt myself during that time, and I felt like an imposter. I want to move on to our next part of our lesson, stress and anxiety. Each of us have it. Each of us have different words for it. Each of us have a different understanding of it. And so I want to give you some words to work with and some thoughts to think of. So we're going to give you some definitions and differences between stress and anxiety, kind of go through the brain science of stress, good stress, bad stress, how to manage it. So definitions and differences. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to have you think about this. What do you think is the difference between stress and anxiety? And this is the definition. So you may see it differently. You may use different words when you have these feelings or thoughts. But think about what your definitions of stress and anxiety are. So stress is a body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. The body reacts to these changes with physical, mental, and emotional responses. And that body reacting sometimes is referred as a manifestation. So you have stress, your body has stress that happens as a result of physical, mental, and emotional responses that your body is having. And often that is anxiety. Anxiety is a feeling of worry or fear and unease. It can be a reaction to the stress, or it can occur in people who are unable to identify significant stressors in their life. So that feeling of anxiety comes from the stress. That feeling of anxiety comes from sometimes not being able to identify that stress. And so that feeling, that reaction that you have physically or mentally or emotionally is the stress. It's your body's reaction. And the anxiety is often the reaction to that stress, is the way to think of it. And often that anxiety comes from not knowing how to deal with that stress or not knowing how to identify it, understand it, know when it's coming, recognize it. So think about this weekend. How will stress show up for you this weekend? We like to think of weekend as stress-free times, but time with family isn't always stress-free. You might have a lot of homework over the weekend. You might have work over the weekend. You might have other things that we don't know about that induce stress for you. So what are the type of things that you stress about? Is there something you're anxious about right now that's going to carry into your weekend? So good versus bad stress. What do you think is good stress? What do you think is bad stress? So I'll give you some examples. Good stress. When we feel excited and there's not threat or fear. So excitement is a sort of stress. It's a reaction in your body. It's your hormones. It's a physical. It can be mental. It can be overwhelming. And when it's overwhelming, it moves more towards bad stress. But if we're feeling excited and there's not threat or fear, then it tends to be focused more on the good stress side. Examples, competition. So that could be sports. That could be a test, striving towards a goal. So doing well in a class, doing well in a test, meeting new people. A lot of people avoid this and they think of it as bad stress. But that feeling, those butterflies, that feeling of not being familiar with the usual, is something that's very natural. And because it's natural, I would say it's a good stress. So think about that. Think about the good stresses in your life. Maybe some of the good stresses that you see as bad stresses. And let's take a look at bad stress. Stress that feels inescapable or too many stressors to handle. So that inescapable could be that overwhelming stress. Having too many stresses. So you might have a bunch of good stresses that kind of cascade, build up to a bad stress. And then a perceived threat, harm, or fear of stressors. So when we feel danger that is coming, when we feel harm that is coming, when we feel that, whether that be physical, mental, or emotional, those are bad stresses. When we feel like there is no other options, there is no way for me to go, and this is all I have, and it is not good, that is a bad stress. So think about your good stresses and your bad stresses. Do you think you can change the impact of bad stress on ourselves? Well, there we go. I'm going to play this video here.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits. our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
All right. So neuroplasticity, another fancy way of a different way of thinking or about things or doing things. Pathways, just a different path, a different way. What are some of the pathways you'd like to develop for responding to stress? So how would you like to think about it differently? And how would you like to respond to it differently? Think about that. Think about that as you come into the weekend and the stressors that you may feel, that you may experience every weekend, or maybe that are just specific to this coming weekend. Think about it. Take time to reflect if you can. Now, when you hear neuroplasticity, what term do you think of maybe that we previously discussed? Any thoughts? How about growth mindset and fixed mindset? Neuroplasticity is the acknowledgement that I can do things differently, that I don't have to stay fixed in this one specific way, in this one specific mindset, and one specific way of doing things or thinking about things. Again, it may take some effort, but this is giving yourself that power to change things in your life. And it can be something simple, like making sure to brush your teeth every night, or it could be something big, like realizing that you are much more capable than D's and C's, and capable of getting A's and B's, and the work that it would require to put in, and the different steps that you have to do, the study habits, the working with teachers, the working with peers, the taking the time to put in the work, and give yourself the time to work in order to do better in a class. It could be a significant life change. Neuroplasticity, a different way of thinking about things, is really that growth mindset. And so it can be something significant in your life, such as a relationship, maybe the ending of a relationship, and knowing that that is not the only thing that is out there for you, that you deserve better, or that maybe this relationship is negative for you. And this could be boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, could be family, whatever it may be. It takes a growth mindset to realize there's a different way of going about things, to realize you are not an imposter. And so ways to manage stress. One thing is understanding when good stress moves into bad stress. And that's really recognition. And what you'll see is a lot of this is all about recognition, knowing yourself, taking that pulse. So stopping before the weekend, stopping before that day starts, stopping before that class starts, stopping before you get home, and thinking about it, thinking about how you respond to stress, and then understanding, hey, this stress is moving from good to bad. This is getting overwhelming. This is too much. Recognition. Responding to physiological responses. So again, stress is that body's response. Your brain, your body, your emotional well-being, that is that stress. And so when you feel that coming on physically or emotionally or mentally, but especially physically, how do you do that? Do you take deep breaths? Do you go and pray? Do you go and meditate? Do you need to do something active in order to get some of that nervous or bad energy out of you? How do you respond to it physically? Emotional management. How do you respond emotionally? Very important. We hear this sometimes referred to um, as emotional intelligence. Is how do you respond to these issues that you're having? Because it's okay for you to have them. Allow yourself to have them, but how you respond is really important. And do you recognize that this bad stress is happening that is going to uh, create emotions that could be very negative or could have you responding very negatively? Mindset management, acknowledging thoughts and deciding what to do with them. And so, again, taking that time. We're very busy in these days, especially with COVID, because a lot of our students are stepping away from school and going either immediately to work or going immediately into helping manage the home, working with siblings, or heading immediately to something else that may give them stress. Sports, clubs, homework, whatever it may be. You need to be able to acknowledge the thoughts that you're having, be able to reflect on them and decide what you're going to do with them rather than just jumping from thing to thing. And I'm very, very guilty of that. Make sure that you acknowledge what your thoughts are, the impact your thoughts are having on your emotional, physical, and mental well-being, and acknowledge what's happening. Attach words to it. Even if you're attaching the wrong words to it initially, it's healthy to have that recognition. So you might call that physical response anxiety when really that is stress. Don't worry about the words per se, but acknowledge them. Social management, recognizing the people who can support you. So we're doing SEL and advisement for a reason. We're doing social emotional learning for a reason. You have teachers who are working with you. You have counselors who are working for you. You have therapists, deans, and administration who are here to support you at our school. You have parents, you have friends. Recognize that you are not on your own. Future management. Look ahead to try to figure out what you can do to help prepare for stressors in the future, especially those bad stressors. So that comes with that physical management, that emotional management, that recognizes responses. It's number 6 for a reason. It's all those things that you do to put together to help you be prepared for when those bad times come. And you've seen it. You've seen people that you've been amazed at how they handle stress and how well prepared they are for it. And that's because they're actively thinking about it. They're actively thinking about how they are going to respond, how they respond physically, emotionally, and mentally in these situations, and what to do with those feelings of anxiety that come with that stress. Prepare yourself, work with others, take time to acknowledge, allow yourself to have those emotions, and understand when that stress is moving from good to bad. So we talked about imposter syndrome last time. And again, these here are all just ways to deal with imposter syndrome that come to acknowledging there is a stress, acknowledging that you have anxiety that is coming from that stress, embracing the feelings that you're having, stretching yourself, saying yes to an opportunity that you know may cause some stress, but it could be good stress. Knowing the signs of when you're feeling like an imposter, acknowledging, recognizing, and saying, hey, I'm feeling this. It is okay to feel this, but this is not where I'm going to stay stuck. So again, I'll just go over this real quickly. Take your growth mindset and apply that to course selection. Acknowledge that some of these classes are going to cause you stress, but there's good stress that can come from it. Where can your growth come from when you're selecting your classes? Where are areas where you can stretch and learn something new? Maybe not something you absolutely want to do in the future, like military and ROTC or engineering, but are there things that you can learn from those classes that'll help you grow, that'll help you be a better, more well-informed person and student in the future? Again, I want to make sure that you connect what you're doing now with what you're doing in the future. And I know I've showed this a lot, But I really want you to think about it. If you are on track, if you're not failing your classes, but in this time of COVID, it's really hard for you to see, why am I doing what I'm doing? Then find something that you connect with. So CEC means you take half your classes with us, half your classes with them next year, and you can pick the specific area you want to select. And so here are 9 of their opportunities. Here are another 10 of their opportunities. And if you want to look further, the top link gives you information on all those programs. The bottom link allows you to apply as a part-time student at CEC. And if you plan to do so, notify your counselor. Let them know you've applied to CEC as a part-time student and let them know which program you're studying. When you select a program, only choose one. You can move programs after a semester, but you're only choosing one for now. See yourself as a volunteer. See yourself as contributing. We are meeting the first Wednesday after spring break, Google Meets Code DMLK VC team from 2:30 to 3:30. We would love to see you there. We would love to see you look at all these different things at the MSU Denver After School program. Connect yourself with a college and connect yourself with a variety of different activities. See yourself in a different room. BlueJeans.com with those numbers there is the link to get to the session from 2:30 till 2 until 4. Please come and join us. And if you want more information, just go to the bit.ly at the bottom or call or email. And lastly, your quarter 1 through quarter 4 ICAP lessons. Right now, we had 58% of students complete quarter 3 and quarter 4, and that was about the same amount for quarter 1 and quarter 2. So that means today, if we told you it was time to graduate, about 40% of you would not graduate because these questions have to be complete every year. And that includes your 9th grade questions as well. So if you go to the link that we have here, the bit.ly, take a picture of it. That tells you how to access quarter 1 through quarter 4 and gives you some answers to some of the questions and instructions on how to get these questions answered. So please go to this link, which gets you to a YouTube video, and complete your ICAP questions. Thank you all again. Take care. We love and appreciate you. Here to serve you, so please don't be afraid to reach out. And also remember, if you're interested in the MMA, go to the Google Meet Mindy office today at 12 o'clock. Thank you very much and take care. Goodbye.